Well, happy October, everybody, and welcome to Second City Sports, the Monday edition. We're live in the living color right here on Sports Soul Chicago, along with Miss Lakeem McGee, which is she. I am Sydney Brown. Hey, that's me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80.
You can follow Keenan McGee on the Twitter, X, I can't scroll again, the IG.
Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including that iHeartRadio app. And while you're at it, please give War Media a follow at WAR Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. And thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We're unapologetically fun, and we have very definite opinions. If you have any definite opinions during our 2-hour extravaganza we call a Sports Talk Radio Show, you could go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions and comments in the comments section. Lakina will get them up on the screen for you. But if you decide to troll and or do something silly, stupid, or dumb, of giving Lakina full power to give you fools to be and be about.
Toodles.
But before we begin, we must remind you can also catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV. That's right. So no more excuses. Celebrate the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. If you already have a Roku television, just tap on that sports mode and download that Sports Zone Chicago app. If you don't have a Roku television, but you have some handheld devices laying around, iPhone, iPad, iTouch, your Chromebook, or your PC, just head up to Google Play Store, download that Roku TV app, and access Sports Zone Chicago through that avenue. So no more excuses. Celebrate with the squad and get with the program. Sports Zone Chicago is now available on Roku TV. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Live and on demand.
Anytime, anywhere.
And you know we will provide.
And we will try to cheer everyone up here on Second City Sports. I see we got a lot of people probably have a lot of things to say about the Bears and Broncos, that whole mess yesterday. And, of course, the rest of the NFL Week 4 slate, of course, Week 5 of college football. And the MLB playoff picture is now clear and set. Unfortunately, the Cubs aren't going.
I told you it was going to happen, them not making it.
Yeah, well, we'll talk more about that also, too. We got Ryder Cup and, of course, Bulls and the rest of the NBA are doing their media day, including another big trade that came down the pipe over the weekend, and a whole lot more. But first...
Touchdown through the air. Wilson to the air here. Rolling out, still on his feet. Keeping the play alive, and now he's taken down. There goes Herbert, and he's got room with one man back, and Turner Yell may have saved the touchdown. Flea flicker. Fields gets decked, and it's caught on the juggle. Was he in bounds? Yes! St. Brown was able to reel it in. Open for at least 20 yards. Back to the air here. Or will he run it? No, he's throwing because Komet is wide open again. Trying to take advantage. They run it here with Javonte Williams, and a nice play by DeMarcus Walker. Fields over the middle. Oh, what a catch and a first down for Chicago. That is Darnell Mooney. 9th play of the drive. First down and 10. Fields was looking deep. He's going to take a shot. Downfield, he's got a man more. Was he in? No signal yet. Touchdown! Quick pass. Caught by Mims, and he is spun down. That's a great play by Greg Stroman, the 5th-year man out of Virginia. 2nd and 7. Fields wide open is Komet. Touchdown Bears.
And those are the highlights courtesy of CBS Sports. You got Andrew Catalon, Matt Ryan, and Tiki Barber had the call of that game. Said the Bears were up 28-7, but ended up losing. Of course, we saw some. We showed you just the highlights of it. It was just. It kind of went down after that play. And now, of course, it's been another, October 21st. It's almost been almost a year since the Bears actually won a game. And, oh, goodness. And then all the weird messiness. I mean, That lead is is actually the largest lead the Bears have blown in franchise history. Surpassing the 0-2 game versus the Patriots, and also the 1953 game against the 49ers. And I already see like some of our usual people here want to kind of comment. Of course, our buddy Vernon Farrelly. Of course, you can catch him and J Paw on What's Up Cuz later on tonight. Denver said we gonna eat in the fourth quarter. Shaking my head. And it's just a whole lot of kind of weirdness. Of course, Chase Claypool and all of that. We'll talk a little bit more about that in about a minute. But Sid, what do you think? Because I avoided this game at all costs. I actually watched some of the other games that were on, which were actually more exciting, because I had no interest in this. But I know you said you watched it. Probably not a good decision on your part, my friend. But what did you think?
Yeah, I made the decision to watch some of it live via NFL Red Zone because I'm watching other games. For those of you that are new to our program, I usually DVR the Bears game and watch them later like I did this morning, but I didn't watch the whole thing because I saw some of it live yesterday via NFL Red Zone. Instead of me getting off my lazy ass and turning the channel, I decided to watch it yesterday. And the parts that I saw, those are wrong parts that the Bears started to pee on the side of their pants. But regardless, I'll start off with the positives first. As I said last year, and I'll say it again today, we have a tight end. His name is Cole Kmet. It was nice to see him show up on the scoreboard once again. Nice job by Bears OC Lou Getsy to actually include him in the game plan. Number 2, Justin Fields played much better despite that turnover that ended the game. He played much better. This is the best statistical game as the starting quarterback for the Chicago Bears. I don't know if you noticed, Lakina, but he got that ball out of his hands less than 2.5 seconds. You could tell that he was very sharp. He was progressing through his weeks quicker than he normally does, and he didn't hold the ball too long until that fumble that he caused late in that second half. But Justin Fields was very proficient. DJ Moore had a great day, actually got included in the game plan. We actually saw a play from Velus Jones, even though it was called back due to a penalty. But you saw him do some good things. And we actually have a running game, Khalil Herbert. Looking at, we've been saying this for the last 3 weeks. When somebody has the hot hand in terms of running the football, you feed that person. That's what happened with Khalil Herbert yesterday. Now, the bad, that secondary, even though it's depleted with injuries, it looked like it was a high school secondary. Russell Wilson, that second half, carved them up, and it was ugly. And once again, Lakina, I think the Bears only had 2 sacks as a team yesterday. I believe that was. You still could not get any consistent pressure on the quarterback, even though Russell Wilson is older than us combined. So those are the takeaways that I saw that I had yesterday. And I know we'll get to that controversy as far as not going for the field goal, but there were some encouraging signs, Lakina, but the same old mess keeps occurring, and I'm past being annoyed at this point.
I mean, look, okay, yeah, Justin Fields, 4 TDs, bravo. Look, he did it against one of the worst defenses in the league. I'm sorry, but I know people are going to say, well, you got to start somewhere. Well, no. Do this against the Rams, do this against the Eagles, do it against the teams who actually solid defense, and then maybe we'll say, yay, bravo. I mean, I'm sorry, but I can't look. He had his best, statistically had his best passing game against as a Bear. So I'm like, okay, great, cool. Cole Kmet, okay, great. He's getting his touches finally, cool. DJ Moore, 131 receiving yards, okay, great, excellent, that's nice. But I'm sorry, that fourth quarter, where everything started falling off. Fields held the ball too long. When Max that happened, then Jonathan Cooper was able to come in, stripped it, scoop and score, and then that kind of started that whole comeback and whatnot. And then that's interception against Kareem Jackson in the game. Sorry, I don't want to say it negates all of it, but that's part of the stats. And he was also sacked 4 times. 4 times against one of the worst defenses in the league. Seriously? I'm sorry, but yeah, there were some good points. Okay, yeah, woohoo, whoop-de-doo. But I'm sorry, there are 4 quarters in a game. Like, I'm sorry, you had a chance to finish up. I know, I think it's both. I think it's both that the Bears lost the game, but the Broncos, look, to their credit, they were actually able to come back and look, they took advantage of the opportunities that were that fell into their lap. Sometimes, look, at football and sports in general, that happens.
You're listening to Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, the Monday edition, the first show for the month of October. Sid Lakina hanging out here with you, discussing the 31-28 loss that the Bears suffered to the hands of the Denver Broncos on the lakefront yesterday. Lakina, let's get to that 4th down play, the call or no call for to go for the field goal, Lakina. Before we get to the field goal part, you notice that the original play was to draw the Denver Broncos off sides on fourth and 1, and that didn't work. So they called timeout and said, okay, Matt Eberflus is going to go for the field goal here, go for the tie. That didn't happen. So they went for it on fourth down again. I said, okay. But you saw that the play that was ran, Tiki Barber, if you paid attention to what he said after that play, he said everybody in the stadium knew that Khalil Herbert was going to get the ball. If you notice on short yardage situations early in the game, Lakina, not once, but twice, the Bears called quarterback sweeps for Justin Fields. And you notice on that first touchdown pass where you threw to Cole Kmet, they could have called that play on fourth and 1. Like the Patrick Mahomes play, he scrambles and he's at the line. If he doesn't see anybody over, then he runs. They could have did the same thing on fourth down where they didn't go for the field goal. They could have done the same thing. I guarantee you Justin Fields would have gotten the first down, then everything else would have happened after that, so be it. But Matt Eberflus screwed up on multiple fronts yesterday. And I said this to on a social media post. I think it was our guy, Jonathan Hood from ESPN 1000 here in Chicago. He has his post-game stuff here on YouTube and on his social media pages. He was talking about that decision with Matt Eberflus during the fourth quarter on fourth down. And I said, Matt Eberflus, that was strike 3 for me on why he should be fired. 1, you don't have the pulse of the locker room / the situation. Number 2, you put Justin Fields, an injured quarterback, in the blowout game last week that you had no chance in at Kansas City. And number 3, you screwed up, which could have been an easy decision either way yesterday, and you could not convert on the fourth and 1. On their first drive, they didn't go for it, but on the second drive of the game, they went for it and made it, and you couldn't execute that same scenario for a third time when you needed it the most. He's done in my eyes.
The whole thing about should they have gone for it or not during that situation, I would say taking the points. Look, you've got a very reliable kicker. You probably would have made that's a chip shot for him. He probably would have made that field goal. And look, whatever happens, if Russell Wilson would have led the Broncos down the field, and they ended up having a game-winning field goal of their own, hey, so be it. It happens, but at least you can say you tried. But I think the whole thing is just that the whole thing is a mess. I mean, between the bad decision making, the bad play calling, the questionable play calling late, and then putting guys at risk, and the whole thing with Chase Claypool and that whole thing with. Well, let's talk about that real quick. Apparently, I guess, he was told not to go, but then he was told to go. They had he had all his out, because usually when guys are healthy scratches, sometimes you see them on the sidelines. Okay. But
or in a press box.
Exactly. Or, either way. And apparently, I guess, there was a miscommunication. And I guess, somebody said that, well, he wasn't supposed to be there. We told him that he doesn't have to come or whatever. But the whole thing was just silly. And now, I guess, Matt Eberflus, who appears on ESPN 1000 every Monday after the game, apparently he said that I guess that he's not going to, that Claypool's not going to be there. I guess, because they have a short week, because remember they got a game against Washington in DC on Thursday Night Football. I'm sorry to all the Amazon viewers in advance. But that whole messiness and stuff like that. I mean, it's just a whole mess all around. And I just, you know what? I can't wait for us to move on because I'm already kind of over this season.
Yeah, this Bears organization is a complete dumpster fire. I told this to a couple of people yesterday that the Bears organization relying regarding that Chase Claypool situation. It's just, that's what you have PR departments for. You got to have a plan on knowing what you're doing because all these teams are trying to protect their brand and to convey the message in the way they wanted to have it delivered. But it's just a big old mess right now. And going back to what's going on the field, they had the chance to win that game yesterday, Lakina. They were in control 28-7. You just couldn't stop the Broncos a couple of times. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And one more note before we move on for the bottom of the hour break. I'm surprised that game in 92. I remember this because I think it was the week during my birthday, October of 1992. Remember, Lakina, the Bears at the Vikings. Of course, that turned out to be Mike Singletary's last year and Dickens' last year before he got the boot. They blew that big lead to Minnesota at the Metrodome. I think that was Dennis Green, the late Dennis Green's first year as head coach of the Vikings. I'm surprised that game wasn't up there as one of the biggest leads blown. Of course, Jim Harbaugh changed the call that Dickens sent in. Todd Scott returned it for a touchdown. Then the wheels just fell for Chicago. I'm surprised that game is not up there as well.
Yeah, I think they're only up by like 13, I think 13 or 15 or something around there. I don't think it was like up there like by 21. I think it was like about 15 or something like that. I might be wrong, but look, if you guys remember that game, please, give it to us. We'll post it up for you and give you some credit as well. So, I'm like I said, this messiness for the Bears is only going to get worse. I know some people say they should tank the rest of the way so they get those top 2 picks. But Caleb Williams, Marvin Harrison Jr. or Drake May or whoever. I mean, I don't want them to ruin them either. So I'm like, they can ruin them too. Like, I mean, like I wouldn't want to see one of my favorite college players right now to come to this Bears squad because I think they'll be ruined. So, but I digress. So enough with the badness. Let's talk about some of the good stuff that happened around the league in week 4 as we're going to take a quick break. Of course, we got some interesting upsets and I guess Taylor Swift. Okay. Take it, whatever. But, and of course, the Monday Night game, we'll preview that as well. And of course, our studs and does, Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown, more NFL talk coming next. Lakina I already said already. See that's all discombobulated here. So
we need some organization.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, we'll have more NFL talk, for week 4 coming up right after this here on the Second Seed Sports on Sports Zone Chicago.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too.
These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
Um, Welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Show Chicago. Keith McGee, you can follow me at Keith McGee on the Twitter and I can't go again on the IG.
You can follow yours truly, Cindy Brown, on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. You have any questions or comments for us, not only on the Bears' loss yesterday to the Denver Broncos, but for the rest of the National Football League, you can always go to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago YouTube. Type in those questions or comments in the comments section. McGee will get them up on the screen for you.
All right, Sid, let know the bad stuff first. And let's go to the rest around the league, I should say. Let's start in Merry Old England at Wembley Stadium in London as the Jaguars. No trouble with the Falcons, 23-7. Trevor Lawrence had 207 passing yards and a touchdown. Travis Etienne had 55 rushing yards. Christian Kirk was the top receiver for the Jags. On the other side for Desmond Ritter, threw for 191 yards, a touchdown, but threw 2 interceptions. Bijan Robinson, the rookie from Texas, had another solid showing, 105 yards and 14 carries. And Drake London, who actually scored in London, interesting there. He scored a touchdown that shares his last name. Apparently there's a stat here to this. Lamar Houston did it in Houston, in 2017. Of course, various guys have done it in Washington at RFK. Joe Washington did it twice in 1981, 1984. Ken Houston did it at the old Astrodome, scored multiple touchdowns in 68 and 71. Mark Washington also did it at RFK in 1970. And, of course, Kenny Washington did it at Griffin Stadium because I guess his middle name is Griffin. So all the way back in 1948. So but enough of that weird stat, just another little thing there. But, yeah, what do you think about this game? Or did you watch it? I mean, apparently, I guess this International Series game was only streamed on ESPN Plus and Disney Plus. I guess they did like a Toy Story style kind of thing where they had like all the various Toy Story characters in the stands, and they had like the jerseys and different colors. I actually saw it on YouTube a little bit of it. It looks pretty cool, but for a little bit for the family stuff. But yeah, what do you think about this game?
Yeah, I saw the majority of this game in its entirety via this computer screen, and I saw the Toy Story animation on social media. I thought it was okay. I will not watch a whole game with that animation, but that's just me. But I actually watched the actual action yesterday. Lakina, the Jaguars didn't look that great, but they were in control. Like you mentioned, Trevor Lawrence, he didn't have that great of a game, but he did the necessary things that he needed to do to keep that Jacksonville Jaguars offense afloat. Travis Etienne, he didn't do any damn thing for me because I have him on my fantasy team, but I digress. But it was Desmond on the flip side for the Atlanta Falcons. It was Desmond Ritter. He should have had 2 touchdown passes, but he had 2 turnovers, which was the big difference in the game. You mentioned Bijan Robinson was the only difference maker outside of Drake London for the Atlanta Falcons offense. And that Jaguars defense stepped up yesterday. Josh Allen, no, not the Bills quarterback, but the Jaguars defensive end, 2 sacks yesterday. That Jaguars defense came to play, and it showed up in a big way.
Huge way. There were reasons why they won this game. And speaking of the other Josh Allen for the Bills, no trouble with the Dolphins, 48-20. I actually watched the majority of this game via computer screen here that I'm on. Speaking of Josh Allen, he threw for 320 yards and 4 TDs. He now has 12 straight games with multiple touchdown passes against Miami, including the playoffs. That's in the longest streak by QB against a single opponent in NFL history. Also, too, Stephon Diggs, I guess that whole thing, whatever little rift that they, if you want to call it that, it was over and done with. He caught 120 receiving yards and 3 TDs. He's the second Bills player with 3 receiving touchdowns in a game against the Dolphins, with the first since Lee Evans did it back in 2005. He's his third game with 3 receiving touchdowns as a Bill passes Evans also for the most in franchise history. And also too it was a defense for the Bills, pretty solid. DeMar Hamlin, want to give a little shout out to him. He made his first actual start back with Jordan Poyer being out. So congrats to him. Did pretty well. I think he got a couple of tackles. Not big, not like a big stats, but I'm sure the fans were just happy to see him out there. And they sacked 2 of 4 times. So.
Yeah, Devin A-Chain, the backup running back for the Dolphins, he had over 100 yards rushing, and he scored a touchdown. He did well on my fantasy team. I picked him up in our actually 2 touchdowns. I picked him up in our league this week, so he paid huge dividends for me. But I did watch the majority of this game via this computer screen. And early, you thought that this game was going to be a shootout because they were trading touchdowns on each of the first two possessions for both teams. But that second touchdown by Stephon Diggs in that second quarter, where Miami's tackling was nowhere to be found, that turned the game around, and Miami could not catch up their address. Of course, they received the ball. I'm talking about Miami to start the second half, and they couldn't score either. They had a bunch of penalties. And Tyreek Hill, I'm not going to get mad at him. Get mad at head coach Mike McDaniel. Where was he? You didn't involve him enough in the game plan.
Yeah, you have one of those fastest guys in the league, and he didn't use him that much. So, I'm not surprised he wasn't very happy. And actually, in a way, I don't blame him. So that was a little bit weird. But a big whip for the Bills, though, especially in division. So you'll take it if you're a Bills fan. Nonetheless, the Ravens, no trouble with the Browns, 28-3. Lamar Jackson, 186, threw for 186 yards and 2 TDs. Gus Edwards had a 48 rushing yards. But also, it was more of the defense for them because remember, late last minute, Deshaun Watson, couldn't play because Thury's shoulder, so he wasn't able to start. Dorian Thompson-Robinson didn't have his best showing, 121 passing yards, but 3 interceptions, so that definitely killed whatever chance the Browns had. So if you'll take it, especially after what happened last week. I mean, of course, Dorian Thompson-Robinson also sacked 4 times, so you'll take this kind of performance if you're the Ravens after what happened last week against the Colts. Excuse me.
Yeah, this is an important win for Baltimore. It's a road game against a division opponent. You take advantage of one of their stars not being there. It was all about tight end Mark Andrews for the Baltimore Ravens. 5 catches for 80 yards to 2 touchdowns. Again, did you catch Andrews' second touchdown pass
Yes.
where he dove at the top right corner of the end zone? Well, Lamar Jackson placed that ball perfectly for Andrews to go get it.
Yeah, that was a perfect pass and a great catch plan. That's why he's one of the top tight ends in the league. So, a solid showing by the Ravens, especially like you said after that loss against the Colts. Now the Texans pulled off another upset. I don't think anybody saw. We did none of us. Us and our girl Christine Manico KSRP picked Houston, but no surprise. But a little bit of a surprise here though. 30-6. Over the Steelers in a little bit of an upset, probably one of the bigger upsets of the day. C.J. Stroud threw for 306 yards and 2 TDs, and your buddy Devin Singletary also threw for a TD. So that was, I think he did play quarterback in high school, I believe, for a little bit before he went to the running back. Najee Harris was both the top receiver and the top rusher, 71 yards rushing and 32 yards receiving. Kenny Pickett, of course, was knocked out of the game. So, that whole thing was, I know Mike Tomlin said there would be some changes made, but good grief. Now back to CJ Stroud for a second. He's the first rookie since 1970 merger with 250 plus passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and 0 interceptions in 3 straight games. And in NFL history, he's actually the only rookie to achieve 900 passing yards and 0 interceptions. So so far so good for Mr. Stroud.
Yeah, as I said before the season started, I thought CJ Stroud will actually get to this level towards the end of the season. It looks like he's there already. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's your offensive rookie of the year, even though he's on that path right now. But it was all about the Houston defense yesterday, and they stopped Kenny Pickett. They stopped the running game for the Steelers. No one could get it going on offense. And on the flip side for the Houston Texans, we talk about their other wide receiver, Nico Collins, as I talked about in the last couple of weeks. He had a big game yesterday. 7 catches, 2 of them were for touchdowns for 168 yards. Damian Pierce, the second-year running back, had 24 carries for 81 yards. I'm not going to sit here and say that Houston Texans will make the playoffs, Lakina, even though they are 2-2. But I think we said coming to the season they'll get better as the year goes on. But they're still, the way that they're playing right now, they're going to cause a little bit more problems for teams that have to face on their schedule the rest of the way.
Not an easy win for folks. Better look out for them. DeMeco Ryder's doing a great job so far, so we'll see if they can keep it up. Now,
one more note from that game yesterday, Lakina. I did turn to it for a little bit. I know our guy Spiro Ditas called the game,
yes,
but now colleague of Spiro Ditas is at CBS. J.J. Watt was honored yesterday with the Ring of Honor. He did join Spiro and Adam Archuleta in the booth yesterday.
They did that. I actually got a chance to listen. He sounded really good. So you might be hearing him calling games in the future. We'll see. But that was really. I think the defense especially was very motivated too. I know he talked to the team before the game. I know he and DeMeco Ryder were actually teammates for a little bit. So I know that was actually really cool. I think they might have fed off that energy too, having J.J. Watt there. I think that was really, really great to see. Vikings going to the Carolinas. I'm glad you mentioned that. So that was really cool. Vikings and Panthers, again, not the prettiest, but I guess the Vikings really needed this performance after what happened the last couple of weeks. 2 interceptions despite that, but, Kirk Cousins did throw for 2 TDs. Alexander Madison had 95 rushing yards. On the flip side, Bryce Young, 204 yards passing. No TDs and no interceptions, but they just couldn't get it going on offense. It just wasn't enough. And he was sacked 5 times as well. So that O-line, but they're 0-4. What more can you say about the Panthers at this point? I don't know what else to say.
Yeah, they're a young team still trying to figure themselves out. I know Bryce Young returned to the lineup. He barely threw for 204 yards, but his youthfulness started to show toward the end of the game yesterday, especially on that last yard when Minnesota's defense shut him down. But Alexander Mattison from Minnesota ran the ball hard for them 17 times for 95 yards. Justin Jefferson was unstoppable. 6 catches for 85 yards, but 2 huge touchdowns. As you mentioned earlier, Kirk Cousins went from GOAT to being the hero yesterday, but it was a Vikings defense that eventually shut the door.
Yeah, definitely saved the day for the Vikings there. Now, probably one of the more entertaining games, I guess you can say. The Rams beat the Colts 29-23. Colts scored 15 points, to cause overtime. And Anthony Richardson, 2 TDs, threw for 200 yards, also had a rushing touchdown as well. Matt Stafford, 319 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Kyron Williams, had 103 rushing yards and 2 TDs. But it was Mr. Puka Nacua again, 163 yards and a TD, which ended up being the game-winning TD. So far, 39 receptions, most of the players' first 4 career games in NFL history, 501 receiving yards, most in players' first 4 career games in NFL history. Also had a game-winning TD reception as the Rams, of course, they improved to 2-2. So, Sean McVay's had a pretty interesting dilemma here once good old Cooper Kupp comes back, because Puka is doing just fine so far.
Yeah, like you say, he's having a great season so far. All to a nice hot start, taking advantage of his opportunities because you mentioned Cooper Kupp being down. But I'm going to give credit to Anthony Richardson, the rookie quarterback for the Indianapolis Colts out of Florida. He did a really good job yesterday, and I did watch the majority of the fourth quarter via this computer screen. And he showed me something yesterday. We all know that he's mobile. He can run out the pocket, but his passing was a little bit more crisp in that second half. Whatever defense the Rams had in that first half, it worked. It didn't work in that second half because you could tell by each throw that Anthony Richardson had just that much more confidence within him. So he took what the defense gave, and that's how Indianapolis got back in the game.
Pretty entertaining game. And to their credit, they could have, ran away and hit, but to their credit, they came back, forcing overtime. So I know there's no such thing as moral victors in the NFL, but you'll take it if you're the Colts. They're now 2-2 themselves. And let's see, probably another really big surprise. I don't think I saw the score. I know we both did not. None of us picked the Bucks, but they ended up dominating the Saints 26-9. Baker Mayfield again. We're seeing the old Baker Mayfield from Cleveland, I guess. Threw for 246 yards and 3 TDs. Rashad White had 56 receiving yards, leading the team there, and it was a defense though. Actually, they sacked Derek Carr 3 times, and you can tell that I'm a little surprised that they let him play. I'm talking about the Saints. The AC joint. Those days could linger for a little bit, so I'm a little surprised that they let him play. They brought in Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston, but they still couldn't get it going on offense. 51 rushing yards from Alvin Kamara in his first game of the season. So, what'd you think?
Yeah, it was a great defense by the Tampa Bay Bucks, and performance by the Tampa Bay Bucks. And we said a couple of weeks ago, again, when they played the Bears, as soon as Tom Brady retired last year, everybody thought that the veterans and the difference makers from those teams would all go away at the same time. No, they're still there, folks. And you've seen that so far this year. That's why they're 3-1. Let's not forget about Chris Godwin's performance as well. 8 catches for 114 yards. Mike Evans left the game with an injury. Let's hope he's all right if you're a Tampa Bay Bucks fan. So you mentioned Baker Mayfield. I think that Bears game actually gave him a little bit more life. I know what he did opening day at Minnesota, but that Bears game actually gave him a little bit more life. He's keeping Kyle Trask on the bench a little bit longer.
Yeah, definitely kept the chains moving. And actually, so far, I mean, look, the Bucks are 3-1, and look, we'll see. I mean, look, I'm not saying they're going to win the NFC South, but look, that was a big division win for them. So we'll
Yeah,
see what
they are game
happens.
up on the Saints right now.
Yeah, you listen to Second City Sports on Chicago. Like Keenan McGee, Cindy Brown with you as we're recapping the rest of the NFL Week 4 slate. The last of the new, one of the last of the new games. Actually, another thriller in the NFC East. You got the Eagles needed overtime, but they did just enough to beat the Commanders, who are the Bears' next opponent, 34-31. Jalen Hurts had two TDs, touchdown passes, threw for 319 yards. He has now won each of his last 5 regular season starts when facing a double-digit deficit. Remember, the Commanders were up for a little bit at one point. He joined Joe Montana, who did from 1980 1990, and Steve Rutowski, who did from 80-81 as the only QBs since 1950 with such a streak. And look, again, I was watching this game more than the other game, that Broncos-Bears game. I had no interest in that, but I actually watched this game because actually came on opposite that on Fox. And look, Sam Howell, to his credit, I mean, threw for 290 yards and a TD. Brian Robinson Jr. Had a rushing touchdown. But I think this is this is one of your typical, divisional grinded out wins. And look, the Eagles are showing you why they're the reigning NFC champs.
The Jalen Hurts experiment is working well for Philadelphia, as you mentioned, 2 touchdowns and off of 319 yards passing. But watching that Washington Commanders defense, they made Jalen Hurts earn every bit of those passing yards. He couldn't run the ball early. Whatever scheme that head coach Ron Rivera came up with, it worked. But the Eagles, as you mentioned, opened it up in the second half. But that A.J. Brown penalty, when Philadelphia scored their touchdown to tie the game, it helped the Commanders because they scored the game-tying touchdown at the end of regulation, which was a great play on fourth down by Sam Howell. And so Sam Howell has really shown that he's a starting quarterback in this league, but the Commanders didn't have enough to get it done in overtime.
Yeah, Sam Howell might actually throw some 5 touchdowns against the Bears defense on Thursday. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, if you're in fantasy football, if you need a quarterback, pick him up.
yeah, especially this week. For the last of the new games. Look, I knew one of us was gonna regret picking Cincy. I forgot which one of us. I think I picked Cincy like a dummy, and I think Christine did too. And of course, the Titans beat Cincy 27-3.
I told you, yay!
Ryan Tannehill threw for 204 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Derrick Henry actually threw a TD pass himself, and of course, rushed for 122 yards and a touchdown. On the flip side, for Joe Burrow, he was sacked 3 times. You can kind of tell that. I don't want to say, and I know Jamar Chase had 73 yards. I know T. Higgins, got hurt, so I'm sure he was hoping to get that big payday if it's not with the Bengals, but somewhere else. But I mean, geez, the Bengals, they're now 1-3. I don't want to leave them for dead, but especially with the O-line issues, and now Higgins is hurt, and everything else. We still know I still don't think Joe Burrow is 100%. What do you think?
And let's not forget, too, Cincinnati has not been committing to the run all year with Joe Mixon there. So that's another huge issue as well. On the flip side for the Titans, we talked about it this offseason, Lakina Derrick Henry. He was up for trade discussions. Of course, the Titans did not pull the trigger. How many miles are left on those tires? Derrick Henry said, yes, I got plenty more left. He saw that yesterday with that touchdown pass and that rushing touchdown off of 22 carries for 122 yards. Ryan Tannehill played an efficient game, not the greatest game, but an efficient game, 240 yards passing with a touchdown in the pick. But as I told you, Lakina, for the last couple of weeks, when you think you want to count the Titans out, then get a big surprise and win and then lure you back in. They did that yesterday. That's why I picked them on Friday. And this time I was correct.
Yeah, so what's wrong with
watch them lose next week?
Yeah, I'll say because exactly. So we'll see what happens with that. First is the 3:00 games. You got the Chargers holding off the Raiders 24-17. Justin Herbert, who's on my fantasy team, not the best numbers for him. 167 passing yards and a TD. He did have 2 rushing TDs. But of course, they were a little bit kind of depleted there on the injury side for the Chargers. Now the defense did sack Aiden O'Connell. Not a bad show at 238 passing yards, but also interception. He was also sacked 7 times. So the rookie from Purdue got a little bit of a rude kind of welcome to the NFL. Of course, Devontae Adams, of course, he was out for a little bit with a concussion. So, not the best showing. I know Max Crosby had a couple of sacks for the Raiders in a losing effort, but just wasn't enough for them as the Chargers were able to hold them off.
Yeah, we've been asking since the start of the season, Lakina, where's the Chargers defense? And that's why they lost the first 2 games of the year. Where's the defense? We all know they can put up points on the scoreboard, but where's the defense? It finally showed up yesterday, although against a rookie quarterback. Khalil Mack and Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa and those guys had a great game. So if you're the Chargers, this is the way you're supposed to play every week. And the defense can complement that offense. They'll be fine. They just got to put a nice, good winning streak together. We'll see if they can do that.
Yeah,
Since they're 2-2 on the year.
Yeah, Mac, Joyce, Derek Thomas, the only players with multiple games of at least 5 sacks since the stat became official back in 1982. The other game that Mac had a 5-sack game in 2015 against the Broncos when he was playing in then Oakland. So not I'm sure that well, never mind. But probably another thrashing here. I guess playing the Patriots was just what the Cowboys, the doctor ordered for the Cowboys. They just hammered the Patriots 38-5. Dak Prescott 261 yards and a TD. Tony Pollard had 47 rushing yards, but it was really the defense for the Cowboys. And I think, Trayvon Diggs, I should say, not having him out there, you got to think that's going to come back to bite him in the butt. But they did do just enough to kind of slow down the Patriots. And Matt Jones was just a mess. 150 yards he threw, but he also threw 2 interceptions. I guess Sid disappeared on us for a second, but I'm sure he'll be back. But yeah, this whole thing with the Patriots just getting hammered by the Cowboys. And, it was definitely one of those games where, they lost by 35 points to the Cowboys. That's the worst loss. Easily the worst losses from the Bill Belichick era. So hopefully, Sid will rejoin us in a second. But yeah, baby, this game was all about the Cowboys, after bouncing back from that loss to the Cardinals. And look, I think this is definitely one of those games where I think this was just what the doctor ordered for them. So this was a really, just like I said, it wasn't the prettiest, like I said, for the Cowboys, but I kind of to this game. I know this was the big game, that aired on Fox, the number 1 game, but unfortunately that ended up not being the number 1 game. So Sid, I see our buddy Sid's with us still. Hold on, let me get him up here. Wait, hold on. Oh, there you are, Sid. See the Patriots got Sid all discombobulated. So what do you think about the Cowboys Patriots game yesterday?
Yeah, sorry about the audio issues, everyone. But the Dallas Cowboys, they took advantage of a weak opponent, as we talked about before with the New England Patriots. Their defense is actually young, hungry, and aggressive. But then Mac Jones at quarterback, I don't know if he's the long-term answer for Bill Belichick and crew. Now people are talking about New England. Will Belichick get his pink slip and link card at the end of the year? We shall see how this team competes. But the Dallas Cowboys took advantage yesterday of a weak opponent. Dak Prescott actually looked okay, but we'll see what they can do next week as they travel to face the San Francisco 49ers on the road. Tony Pollard didn't have a great game, but he didn't need to have one. Also, their big tight end, Mr. Ferguson, Jake Ferguson, had 7 catches with 77 yards. It was nice to see the tight ends finally get involved in that Dallas Cowboy offense.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll see if they can keep up there. Now, if you had Christian McCaffrey on your fantasy team, he had a pretty nice day yesterday. He rushed for 106 rushing yards and 3 touchdowns. He also had a touchdown catch. As the 49ers, no trouble with the Cardinals, 35-16. He had a total, talking about McCaffrey, had a total of with 600 scrimmage yards and 7 scrimmage TDs through the first 4 games of the season. He joins Emmitt Smith and Jim Brown, who did it twice. That's the only players to do only running backs to do just that. Brock Purdy had 283 pass yards and a TD in the losing effort. Josh Dobbs had 265 receiving yards, pass yards, I should say, and 2 TDs. But the 49ers just too much for the Cardinals.
Yeah, the Cardinals offense started out okay with Josh Dobbs. Toward the end of that first half, I watched the entire game via this computer screen, and the Cardinals were very competitive, but the 49ers defense made some adjustments in that second half. And And they went on to the victory. You mentioned Christian McCaffrey. He was the story on the 49ers side offensively. But Brandon Ayuk had 6 catches for 148 yards. Deebo Samuel, who's on my fantasy team, put up 0 points yesterday for me. But I beat my opponent despite that. But it was an all-around dominant performance for the 49ers against a weaker division opponent.
Do what you're supposed to do there.
Mm-hmm.
The Chiefs and Jets end up being kind of entertaining, sloppy and entertaining, I guess. Probably more than I think anybody thought it would be. Pat Mahomes, had his struggles. Probably one of his worst games of his career. 1 TD, but also threw for 2 interceptions, threw for 203 yards. Isaiah Pacheco, I should say, had 115. Pacheco had 115. Thank you. Had 115 rushing yards and a touchdown. Zach Wilson and losing effort threw for 245 yards and a touchdown. Breece Hall, only 56 rushing yards for them. Taylor Swift shots, I think it was like 17 or something. I mean, it's just like, I mean, again, wasn't the prettiest, but you'll take the win for the Chiefs, but you wonder, like, all the hoopla and stuff that's been, going around. I know Travis Kelce was not very happy. He did lead the team in receiving yards, but he didn't have any TDs. He had a couple of drops. So, I'm wondering, like, is it? I don't want to look. You don't want to. I'm like what we said on The View. I mean, look, I was a football fan before Taylor Swift started watching football, and the inevitability of she and Kelce break up. I mean, I'm gonna still watch football, so I don't really care about it. But I'm just like, oh God, enough, please, enough.
I'm with you on the Taylor Swift foolishness. This is why, for people who don't watch football, this is why Aaron Rodgers is so important to the brand. Because if Aaron Rodgers was playing last night with the same exact situation, trust me, Taylor Swift would not get as much coverage or talk like she's been getting the last couple of weeks. But back to on the field matters. The Jets defense actually showed up. They just didn't have enough. Zach Wilson, as you mentioned, played a whole lot better. No turnovers with 2 touchdown passes. But they got to find a stud wide receiver to help out Garrett Wilson. Of course, Allen Lazard was the big guy with the only receiving touchdown off of 3 catches for 61 yards. I'm not going to sit here and say that the Jets are back and they're starting to play better, but they showed a much better effort last night than they have been given the last couple of weeks.
They didn't show Rodgers that much. I think they showed Rodgers like 4 or 5 times, and that's it. He was just chilling in the box by himself.
Yeah,
so.
but I'm just saying, if he was playing, you wouldn't get that much Taylor Swift foolishness.
That's true. That is true. So, yeah.
That's why it's so important to the brand, whether people want to admit it or not.
Right, exactly. Studs and duds real quick.
My studs here, Christian McCaffrey for the 49ers, 4 touchdowns. For the second stud, A.J. Brown of Philadelphia, 9 catches, 175 yards to 2 touchdowns. And my third stud is Derrick Henry from Tennessee, 122 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 passing, 22 carries for Mr. Henry for the Titans.
Mine are C.J. Stroud. Great showing by the rookie so far. I think he's definitely the leader in the clubhouse for Rookie of the Year in the AFC. Tampa looking pretty good. I gotta say, We'll see if they can keep it up. They're the class of the NFC South right now. And I guess Derrick Henry. I mean, I think that was his first TD pass in like 3 or 4 years. I think he played quarterback for a little bit before he became a running back at he was at Alabama. So those are my 3 studs.
All right, my 3 duds is Desmond Ridder of the Atlanta Falcons. My second dud is the Miami Dolphins defense and / offensive coordinator not involving Tyreek Hill within the game plan. And my third dud, it will be NBC.
Oh, yeah, for the Taylor Swift.
That's why I didn't watch a single minute of it live last night.
Yeah.
I digress.
I kind of skipped all that. It was just bad. But my 3 duds, New England. I mean, I don't want to say that the wheels are starting to fall off, but Bill Belichick might be getting his pink slip and late card at the end of the season. They don't improve, but we'll see. Let's see, Cincinnati. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if it's I think it's more than just Joe Burrow's calf. I know some other stuff going on too. So we'll see. And I guess my other dud, is Pittsburgh. I mean, what happened against Houston yesterday? I mean, look, Mike Tomlin, love you, but some of those play calls, especially that got Kenny Pickett hurts. Like, what the hell? You should have went for it when you didn't go for it when you should have, and then when you did go for it, your QB got hurt. So what the hell happened there? But I digress.
Good call. Yeah,
so,
good
those
call.
are my duds. Yeah.
Yeah, good call. And tonight is Monday Night Football on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN2, featuring the Manning cast as the 2-1 Seattle Seahawks visiting MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, to take on the 1-2 New York Football Giants. The Seahawks are 2.5-point favorites on the road. Lakina, on Friday's show, I did pick Seattle to win. I don't know if Saquon Barkley is going to play tonight, but even if he does, it's going to take him time to get back. But I think it's going to be about defense for me in this game and running the football. Seattle, I think they're more aggressive defensively than the New York Football Giants. Look for Kenneth Walker III to handle the majority of the rush load for Seattle, and look for Seattle's defense to get after it against Daniel Jones, especially if Saquon Barkley does not return tonight.
Yeah, I expect Pete Carroll to kind of unleash the Seahawks, I guess, in that with that defense, especially with Daniel Jones, especially if Barker does not end up playing. So I think that's really going to be the key for me. All right, hour number 1 in the books. Hour number 2 straight ahead. Of course, we're going to talk NCAA football week 5 as some interesting little performances, and things got a little bit too. And does he think there should be a new number 1 in college football? I'll ask him about that. Of course, we'll also preview the MLB playoffs. Yay. I mean, you're kind of a mixed bag, I guess, for us, but unfortunately. But, of course, NBA has a media day and a Ryder Cup recap and a whole lot more. And, of course, WNBA ESPN gets their dream matchup in the finals there. So, a lot to do still in the second half hour. Second season Sports on Sports on Chicago. We'll go to College Ground coming up to start hour 2 after this.
No, I don't know, though. I'm scared. I mean, you're so
Do you know that you're in my lane? No, not at all. Are you not paying attention? Are you texting? I was just checking in with my mom. I was telling her that I thought we'd be home by 6. It's okay. There's enough time. Just pay attention. I'm not even halfway through my text. There's no way. I'm not even going to look up. My babies are in the car. You have to pay attention. It's just supposed to be a quick text. I'm so sorry.
Hi, I'm Tom Brady, the director of DODEA. September is National Suicide Prevention and Awareness Month. The simple act of reaching out and caring for those in our communities is something we all can do. Just being there for someone you care about can be a tremendous first step in getting them access to confidential resources and support that they need. It only takes one person and one small act and 1 minute to make a difference. Let's make a difference.
Move it!
Many will hear the calling. Few will earn the title. United States Marine. The few, the proud, the Marines.
Welcome back to Second Season Sports on Chicago. You can follow me at Kingdom McGee on the Twitter, X at Kids Coming In, IG.
You can follow yours truly, Sidney Brown, on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. SIDKID80. We have less than an hour left of this extravaganza we call it Sports Talk Radio Show. You have any questions or comments for us, you can always hit us up in the comment section at Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. The best and the creative comments and questions will be put up on the screen by Miss Lakina McGee.
All right, so let's stick with football and let's go to the college side for a little bit here. Couple of interesting scores here. Georgia had to hold off Auburn, but they did 27-20. They have a big clash coming up next week. We'll talk more about that in a second. Michigan, no trouble with Nebraska. I know some people thought that maybe this is going to be Michigan's first true road game of the season, and Lincoln, how the black shirts and stuff, But again, they had no trouble. 45-7. Do you think that Michigan should be the new number one in the country?
No, not yet because of their schedule. They haven't played anybody tough yet, so I'm gonna say no. And I think this next game you're gonna talk about, if you're following the same screen that I am. I want to talk about this other team in just a second. That should be number one in the country. Yes,
Texas, no trouble with Kansas, 40-14, just dominating them from start to finish. Of course, Quinn Ewers. That probably I'm wondering that he should be in the Heisman discussion. I really feel like he threw for 325 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. But Jonathan Brooks, remember that name, folks? 218 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns for him. And there's the same stat here, if I can get it up for a second. Brooks actually, that's a career high for him. He's a 5th player in Texas history with 200 plus rushing yards and two rushing TDs versus an AP top 25 team. He joins a pretty good list. Dante Foreman, who did against Baylor in 2016. Vince Young, of course, who did against USC in the national championship game. Ricky Waters did in 1999 against Mississippi State, and Earl Campbell, who did that against Texas A&M in 1977.
Yeah, Ricky Waters should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, by the way. But
we should say Ricky Waters.
But I digress. But don't forget about Donnie Mitchell, their star wide receiver. Talking about Texas, Longhorn star wide receiver. He had 10 catches for over 141 yards and a touchdown. I said that Texas should be number one because they look great against better competition so far. Even though the Big 12 is not the Big 12 outside of USC and Utah, but the teams that they played on their schedule, they had dominated. And my measuring stick is this: what they did to Alabama a couple of weeks ago. I know Alabama is not this dominant force this year like they have been in years past, but the way their defense played against Nick Saban's crew in Tuscaloosa under the lights in prime time, that was very impressive. And that's what got me over the hump with them. Now, with Texas being ranked number 3 in the country, they're 5-0. They should be the new number one. Their defense is outstanding. They haven't stopped since. They could have coasted after that Alabama game. They say, no, we're still going to show our dominance. And they did that once again last Saturday.
They almost did it against Wyoming. They'll remember that a couple weeks back. But they're back on track. They have a very big game coming up on Saturday. We'll talk about that in a second. Penn State needed a big second half, but they did beat Northwestern 41-13. It's interesting because Northwestern was actually up at halftime. But I guess James Frank has told stuck a fire up his guys' butt, and they were able to they dominated from here on out after that.
Yeah, that's what happens when you coast against lesser competition, right? Nicholas Singleton for the Nittany Lions had 21 carries, 80 yards in the score. Also, to Mr. Keandre Lambert-Smith had 4 catches for 86 yards for Penn State as they rolled over Northwestern in that second half, scoring 31 points to 3 in that second half. Lakina, as I talked about with Northwestern, of course, because of outside forces, I don't give a damn about them. But they're showing signs of a team that, even though they're not even though they weren't going through this situation, they weren't that good to begin with. So they're lucky they're only 2-3.
Yeah, absolutely. They should be 1-4, but I digress.
Exactly. Thank you, Minnesota.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Minnesota. But but hey, look, you'll take it when and kind of keep them. I know they got Ohio State in a couple weeks to talk about Penn State does, so they might have been kind of looking ahead a little bit. So we'll see. Washington held off Arizona. I know some people probably saw this game. I think it was more like some garbage points late for Arizona. But Michael Penix Jr., no TDs, but threw for 363 yards, kind of kept the chains moving. Dylan Johnson had 2 rushing touchdowns for Washington, so they stay undefeated. Again, not the prettiest performance by any stretch, but you'll take the win if you're Washington. Look at a tough environment in Tucson, so you'll take that. USC had to hold off Colorado 48-41. They were up big, of course. Again, garbage points late for Colorado. And once again, I know I've heard a lot of people say this. Once again, look, Caleb Williams did his thing, threw for 6 touchdowns, threw 403 yards, which I think, if I'm not mistaken, my math might be off here. That's 19 straight games he has at least 1 passing touchdown. Of course, that Matt Leinart, he did it in 24 straight games from 03 and 04. Caleb Williams is down now at 19, so he still has a few games to go before he catches up with him and with that record. But once again, that defense making things interesting when it doesn't need to be. I'm worried.
And that's been with USC's problem all year long. Of course, Colorado showed some fight. Lakina, I thought scoring 27 second half points, like you said, USC almost gave that game away. But Omarion Miller was the standout player for Colorado, 7 catches for 196 yards in the score. You mentioned Caleb Williams on the flip side with 6 touchdown passes. But if you caught this scenario in the first half, Colorado missed a field goal, had a block punt interception, which turned into 14 points for USC as they dominated their first half. If it wasn't for that scenario I just described to you, Colorado would have won that game.
Or at least they would have kept it close, even closer. So it'll be interesting, though. But yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I think SC, I think I kind of felt like, okay, you know what? You're not ready to win a national championship if you're, again, this was his problem, unfortunately, at Oklahoma, too. I mean, he had a great offenses with Jalen Hurts and the rest of that group, but they couldn't get it done on defense. That's kind of what killed them in the end. That's why they couldn't go far in the playoff. But I digress there. Oregon, no trouble with Stanford, 42-6.
Coach Lenny didn't need a speech for this.
No letdown for them. They dominated Stanford as they should have. Notre Dame needed a last-second TD from Sam Hartman to pass to Sam Hartman to beat Duke 21-14. Hartman, they needed for it was like 4th and 10 or 11, and he ran for 13 yards. They kept the drive moving, and what led to a touchdown. Way to go, Duke! I mean, the one time where everyone was cheering for you. Go figure. But again, I digress. But what do you think? I know you watched a little bit of this game, so what you think?
Yeah, I saw some of the highlights of this game. Riley Leonard looked impressive to me, the quarterback of Duke. I know he led the team in rushing yards with 88 off of 18 carries. But Notre Dame stud tight end Mitchell Evans was the man, 6 catches for 134 yards. He helped keep those chains moving for Mr. Sam Hartman and crew on that Irish offensive side. But like I said, Lakina, on Friday, this was going to be a tough game on the road for Notre Dame, especially after what happened last week, losing in the last second at home to Ohio State. They're going to learn that lesson. They're going to apply it to a much improved Duke team, and that's what happened. Now the Fighting Irish improved to 5-1. Duke suffers their first loss of the year. Now they're 4-1.
Going to be very interesting there as they go on, through the rest of the season. Alabama, I guess, folks were kind of wrong to prematurely write their football obituary. They have no trouble with Mississippi State 40-17. Jalen Milroe, no trouble. I mean, he's starting to get a little bit better, kind of getting more comfortable. That defense has been pretty solid too. I think the offense is starting to figure things out as well. He threw for 164 yards, had 2 rushing touchdowns. And I want to say kind of pretty dominating fashion. The defense had 3 interceptions, so they're starting to kind of figure things out over there.
Yeah, as they get the quarterback situation figured out, it's been the running game in the strong defense for Alabama that's been keeping them afloat this year. That's why they're 4-1 on the year and 2-0 in the SEC. Jalen Milroe, if he continues to have these types of performances, he's going to give that much more confidence, not only from head coach Nick Saban, but from the rest of his teammates, that Alabama can beat that team that can qualify for the college football playoff come later on this year. But right now, they still have some kinks to work out, and they've been working it out these last couple of weeks. We'll see how well they do in the next couple of weeks here as their schedule gets tougher.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Yeah, they will. So we'll see what happens there. Now, speaking of apparently a basketball
Was that
game.
Nick Saban calling you?
Yeah, well, it might have been. Of course, a basketball game. A basketball game kind of broke out here from Ole Miss against LSU, 55-49, and ended up being kind of like a slugfest. So for all you defensive people out there, need not apply here. Unfortunately, Jackson Dart had threw for 389 yards of 4 TDs. Jaden Daniels had 414 yards, also 4 TDs on the flip side for LSU. Logan Diggs had 2 rushing touchdowns. 101 yards for LSU. Ole Miss's Quinshawn Judkins had 177 rushing yards and a touchdown. Ulysses Bentley the fourth had rushed for 90 yards and 2 TDs there. So it was really one of those things where you're just like, okay, whoever had the ball last, I think was going to win. And Ole Miss scored 21 points late.
Yeah, we kind of thought that this was going to be a high-scoring game, but we didn't think it was going to be this high. And don't forget about Trey Harris from Ole Miss. Their star wide receiver had a big game as well. 8 catches for 153 yards and a touchdown as well. Ole Miss, we saw them against Alabama last week. They did not look good, but as you mentioned, they rebounded nicely with a big win at home. Now LSU is now 3-2 on the year. Brian Kelly, I'm not going to say his job is in jeopardy because I don't think so, but you got to kind of look at him side-eyed here. He had a couple of chances to take this game, but they couldn't come up with the big defensive start when they needed to.
Yeah, 104 points, the most in the game in this rivalry's history. Now, the 55 points for the Rebs are the most against an AP ranked opponent all time in their program history. So, kind of a funny stat there if you think about it. So, if you took the over, you actually did pretty well. Now, who will be Texas' next opponent? 50-20 over Iowa State. Dylan Gabriel threw 366 yards and the 3 touchdowns. So just a really solid showing there. It got a little close early on, but Oklahoma kicked it into gear. And the Oklahoma-Texas game in the Red River rivalry here, that'll be very interesting in Dallas coming up on Saturday. So that's going to be a lot of fun to see. No trouble with South Carolina, 41-20. Florida upset by Kentucky, 33-14. I guess we can call it an upset, I guess. This is the second straight win for Kentucky against Florida. And here's a name for you guys in the Heisman race, Ray Davis, 280 yards and 3 TDs for him. And just a great showing by him. This is actually the third straight win against Florida for the first time in a 4-game streak from, you got to go all the way back to 1948, 1951. When Barry Byron was the Kentucky head coach. The 19-point win is also the largest margin of victory against Florida since 1979. And speaking of Ray Davis, he's 250 scrimmage yards and 4 scrimmage TDs in the game. The first time SC player to do it since in 2019. That was when Lynn Bowden Jr., who did it, who also played for Kentucky against Louisville. So Kentucky looking pretty good.
Yeah, you would think they'll replace Florida in the top 25 rankings because they're 5-0, talking about Kentucky, and 2-0 in the SEC. We'll see what happens with that going forward. But Graham Mertz did not have the greatest game for Florida. I know he had 2 touchdown passes, but he had a crucial interception. He only had 244 total passing yards. That's not going to get it done for Florida. And they struggled to run the ball. And like you mentioned on the flip side for Kentucky, Mr. Davis ran the ball hard for 280 yards. And that was one of the big differences in the game. Of course, the Wildcats defense unloaded on Florida to close the deal.
Kentucky plays Georgia next week in Athens, so
that's going to be a good game.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun
one.
We'll
talk about that on Friday.
Yes, we will. The Fighting Mike Burmans, the Mizzou Tigers, they go to 5-0. They held off Vanderbilt 38-21. Fresno State, they stay undefeated as well. No trouble with Nevada 27-9. Texas A&M beat Arkansas. Minnesota, a little bit too close, I'm sure, for some of those Gophers fans, but they do beat Louisiana. Utah State edged out UConn. Clemson, let's talk about this one game for a second, Sid. 31-14 over the Fighting Dave Kearns, as we call him here, the Syracuse Orange.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Yeah, remember the question I was asking you on Friday, Lakina, will the real Cade Klubnik show up? He needs to show me something. Well, he did, 263 yards passing and 2 touchdowns. Also, Will Shipley ran the ball hard for the Tigers 18 times for 61 yards and a touchdown. And their stud wide receiver, Tyler Brown, had 9 catches for 153 yards. Lakina, this was total domination from start to finish. I did check out this game for a little bit Clemson set the tone right away. The Syracuse Orangemen just could not catch up. They had the home crowd behind them, but it was Clemson's defense that set the tone early, but the offense took over for Clemson, and they rolled on to a 31-14 win to get their first win of the year in the ACC.
Probably the best Clemson have looked all year, so
Yes.
we'll see. I mean, I don't know if I don't think they'll be able to get back into the ACC championship discussion, but we'll see. James Madison will stay undefeated. They're 5-0. They beat South Alabama. Boston College beat Virginia in the underachieving bowl, as I call it, 27-24. Cal held off Arizona State. Maryland. I think some people are say that maybe we'll see if they. We'll see. I mean, they're 5-0 right now. They'll have no trouble against Indiana, but they can play Ohio State in the big news Saturday game coming up this Saturday. So this is going to be a big test for Mike Locksley and his crew.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, do we take Maryland seriously, or do we wait till they game after they game on Saturday? Because I want to see what they do. As you said, they're in the horseshoe, correct?
Yes, they are.
Yeah, so this is going to be the biggest test of this season. Is their 5-0 record for real or for Gazy?
We'll see. We'll see what happens. Should be a fun one there on the horseshoe. We'll talk about that on Friday. Texas Tech, no trouble with Houston. Bowling Green upset Georgia Tech in Atlanta 38-27. Baylor was down 35-7 against UCF. They come back to beat UCF 36-35. I actually saw a little bit at the end of this game, and it was just a really crazy game. And look, give Baylor Bears credit. They didn't give up, and they ended up coming back to win it.
Yeah, sometimes, as we talked about with USC Colorado early, when you have a big lead, sometimes you relax, and that's what happened with UCF here. So Baylor got themselves together, especially in that second half, scoring 26 fourth quarter points. Blake Shapen for Baylor, their stud quarterback, had 293 yards passing and a touchdown, but it was Monterey Baldwin for Baylor, that star wide receiver. He had 7 catches for 150 yards, and they scored. Lakina, when you have big comebacks like this, you got to have big breaks. You got to make big plays on defense, and you got to take advantage of your opportunities on offense, and that's what Baylor did all in that fourth quarter.
Yeah, they did, and they looked really good. So, nice comeback by them. Northern Illinois lost Toledo 35-33. Yikes. Yeah, Memphis pulled away, holds off Boise State 35-32. Wyoming beat New Mexico 35-25. Let's see here. Michigan State, valiant effort, but it wasn't enough against Iowa. They actually scored 26 points. Iowa did, so right. That is a cause for applause. SMU beat Charlotte 35-16. Vodtech beat Pittsburgh 38-21. This is a good one here. West Virginia held off TCU 24-21. This is definitely a back and forth game throughout, but West Virginia did not play better on defense, and they just had to kind of pull off those stops late to hold out the Horned Frogs on the road. And Air Force stay undefeated. They no trouble with San Diego State 49-10. They're now 5-0.
Yeah, what's happened to San Diego State this year? I know they've been the talk of the Mountain West Conference. We talked about what they've been doing off the field for the last year or so, trying to lead that conference, but they can't. But they usually have good teams they have for the last a few years, but they're now 0-2 in the Mountain West, 2-4 overall. Do you think they'll recover this year, or just wait to 2024?
I think they'll do just to try to at least get into at least a bowl consideration. They might finish like a 5 or 6 or something. They made 6-5, I think. Look, I think they have a young squad. I think that's probably another reason why they're not doing as well as you thought in recent years. But look, San Diego State's one of those programs where, like you said, I mean, they thought they could leave the Mountain West, they couldn't, and so it's gonna get very interesting there. And of course, Brady Hope, remember, former Michigan coach, he's still over there. So, and I think a lot of the recruiting, because of that, the recruiting hasn't been very good for them either. So I think that's probably might have been the reason why they haven't been doing not done well. But like I said, they actually have pretty much a brand new squad. So that's probably another reason why they've kind of been struggling this year.
Yeah, one more score to pass along from the Big Ten from Saturday. Purdue beats Illinois 44-19. Illinois 6 second half points. That's not going to get it done. As I was afraid of this, Lakina. They had a surprising year last year. I'm talking about Illinois. I know they lost a few guys to the NFL, but this is a pessimistic Chicago sports fan to me, Lakina. Your team comes out of nowhere and does well. They exceeded all expectations. When they expect to do well the following year, they let you know. That's what's happening with the Illinois Fighting lineup right now. Brett Bielema and crew. They're 2-3, 0-2 in the Big Ten.
Yeah, yikes. That's not a good showing there. Now, some breaking news here. Our buddy Dave Reps just tweeted this out. He actually retweeted this. Kate McNamara, of course, the transfer QB, of course, from Michigan to Iowa, will likely miss the rest of the season due to a leg injury suffered against Michigan State. So that could be big. That could be big for Iowa, especially if they're hoping to kind of pull off a couple of upsets.
Yeah, we talk about them scoring points and trying to shock the world in that Big Ten. Like I said, that's going to be a huge injury, especially with their schedule coming up. That injury could loom to a big amount of a loss, and it probably could alter their season. But it's going to be up to the replacements for whoever's going to replace them in that lineup. But overall, it's going to be an overall team effort collectively to fill his shoes and play their role.
We'll see if they can figure it out now. Okay, so we're going to do this rapid fire after the break. Of course, we got MLB playoffs to preview. We've got NBA Media Day, including a big trade that happened over the weekend. Ryder Cup, Old School TV Monday. A lot to do still. The Kingdom of Gate, City Brown, Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. We're going to do a hodgepodge rapid fire coming up right after this.
This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school. This year, my mom got me the perfect bag for back to school.
These colorful binders help me stay organized.
These headphones are just what I need for studying.
These new sneakers are just what I need for the new year.
This jacket is a real must-have.
My parents got me the skateboard I wanted. It's pretty cool.
These scissors really come in handy in art class.
These colored pencils, too. These new socks, they can be a real lifesaver.
I finally got my own phone to stay in touch with my mom.
Trisha's having a sleepover tonight. Can I go?
I wonder about Lucy's friends. What should I say? I know you're only 10, but one of these days a friend will offer you a drink. And alcohol at your age can lead to so many things. None of them good.
So can I go to the sleepover?
Lucy, I want you to promise me
I
something.
finished my homework.
Bigger promise. If there's any drinking, I want you to say, "No thanks, not my thing."
Mom.
I promise you, your real friends won't care. Deal?
Sure.
Really?
I promise, Mom.
They really do hear you.
Did you pack your toothbrush?
For tips on how to start the talk, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. A public service message from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration.
Hey, this is Dr. J, and I listen to Sean and Maya in the morning.
All right, and welcome back to Second City Sports on Sports Show Chicago. I'm Lakina McGee. You can follow me by Lakina McGee on the Twitter, X at Kina's McGee on the IG. Unmute your mic.
Okay, there we go. These damn computers. Anyway, you can follow yours truly on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, it's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. This is our last break of the show for today. If you have any last-minute fourth quarter questions or comments, you can do so by going to Sports Zone Chicago's Facebook page or at Sports Zone Chicago on YouTube. Type in those questions, comments in the comments section. The best of the creative ones will be put up on the screen by Miss Lakina McGee. And just a daily reminder, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago now available on Roku TV.
All right, Sid, real quick, Cubs and White Sox, of course, unfortunately for the Cubs. The Marlins win 2 out of 3 against Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. That last game against I forgot who they were playing. The Mets. It really didn't matter as they clinched the last playoff spot in the NL wild cards. I'm going to keep it short and sweet. I mean, look, does it suck? I mean, I'm not going to say this is a collapse. I know that they were up, in the second wild card for like 3 or 4 games, but I think, look, people need to remember that no one was really expecting the Cubs to really do anything this year. It sucks that they couldn't, get over the hump and let, games like, series against the Rockies and, what happened, in a couple other series beforehand and those Diamondback series kind of slipped away from them. But I think this also kind of just shows you why they need more players, we'll see if Cody Bellinger decides to come back. He's up at the end of this year, and we'll see what happens after that. I mean, I kind of feel like, again, that I think this could be a nice little get up. I know that some people wonder, could David Ross be gone? I mean, I don't know. I know that Tom Burke has given that dreaded vote of confidence, if you will. But again, we'll have to see. We'll see if we get to have somebody on after that. But maybe before the winter meetings, so we'll see what happens. But we'll see if the Cubs make any big moves this offseason.
I was thinking about this over the weekend, Lakina, and I'll have to respectfully disagree with you. I know many Cubs fans didn't have the expectations of their team qualifying for the playoffs this year, but the way that things have gone for the Cubs, especially when Cody Bellinger returned from his injury in late June, early July, the team started to take off, and Jed Hoyer and Carter Hawkins did make a couple of moves at the trade deadline to boost this team. Sometimes when these types of seasons happen, even though you think it's a huge window, that's a long window. You have to take advantage of it. The Cubs didn't do that during the last month of the season. And just like our guy Herb Lawrence always says, those games in April and May counts just as much as they do in August and September. Now, you mentioned the schedule going down the stretch for the Cubs. They dominated Pittsburgh early in the year. They couldn't do that here in Chicago when Pittsburgh came in Chicago and take 2 out of 3. The Colorado Rockies, you sweep them here, but the series before, when you were out there in Colorado, you lose that series. And you get swept by the Braves, as I said on Friday. You couldn't take at least 2 of those games. They had a chance to win at least 2 of those games down there in Atlanta. You couldn't get it done. And you lost the season series to both Florida and Arizona. Now, on paper, do I think the Cubs are better than both those teams? Yes, but when it mattered most, they choked. And like you said, they were in the driver's seat for that second wild card spot behind Philadelphia, who ended up taking the first wild card spot. So if you're a Cubs fan, do you consider this season a failure? Yes, only because you were in the driver's seat for that second wild card spot. All you have to do is win those series that I just mentioned. We'll be previewing right now. We should be previewing them playing the Milwaukee Brewers tomorrow up north in Milwaukee.
And that's fair, and that's fair. But again, I also have to tell folks that, look, remember, I mean, the fact that they got this far. I mean, look, you said it yourself. I mean, they ran into teams. Pittsburgh, played spoiler. Colorado played spoiler, and also the injuries. I'm not saying that's an excuse, but I kind of feel like them not having a solid bullpen, middle relief. I think that came out to bite them in the butt too. So. Again, I mean, look, it sucks that we're not, previewing, Cubs, Milwaukee starting tomorrow. That would have been a fun series, but, it is what it is. So we'll see what happens there. And then, unfortunately, on the flip side, on the South side, of course, the Sox have lost 101 games. I don't know why that last game against the Padres ended up going to extra innings. I mean, no one would have cared. I wouldn't have cared. I know Sid wouldn't have cared. No one would have cared. That game did not have an ending, but I digress. But we'll see if they make any moves. I mean, fun times, I guess, ahead.
Yeah. Can I do something real quickly, Lakina, regarding the White Sox? Because I was there on Saturday. I'm going to pull a Tom Joyner. the old school retired FM DJ. He did his work here in Chicago for many years, of course, before he went on to do his national show for the last 25 years. I know he retired a few years ago, but I know we don't do shout-outs, but can we do some shout-outs here real quick? I was at the White Sox game on Saturday. Shout out to the Chicago Sports Bums. They held a great tailgate at Lot B. I got all the evidence out on my social media pages. Please check them out. And also to run into a good friend of the show, Herb Lawrence from CHGO. Hopefully he said he wants to come back on the show. We'll find a way to get him back on this show very soon. Him and Sean Anderson are both doing a great job along there. Vinny Duber covering the Sox over there. Also, I ran into Matt Speaker, my old colleague back at Sporting News Radio. Of course, him and Danny Parker is another good friend of ours, a good friend of the show. I saw Speaks with his family over the weekend at the Sox game. So Speaks is doing a great job. Him and Parkins during 670 scoring during the afternoon. So I ran into those people. I wanted to shout them out one and all. And, of course, to the guys at Section 108 at the Sox game, too. So the game did turn out the way that we wanted as far as Sox fans concerned, but it was my final time there this year as the regular season round down. Even though it was another underachieving season, this was the worst of them all in recent memory, losing 101 games. Yours truly still had fun meeting new and old people along the way, covering the White Sox baseball once again this year.
Shout out to Carlissa Bergamini, who, of course, does a good job of doing the Sox, kind of like, pointing there, you're getting the pumping up the crowd. I forgot the guy she does it with. I forgot his name. But,
Ryan, yeah. Shout out to Ryan as well.
Ryan, yeah. I forgot his last name though. But the shout out to them as well for this great season in the books. Hopefully, more better summer ahead for both the Cubs and the Sox. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Now Alyssa goes to do work for the Chicago Bulls, and we'll get to them in just a second.
We'll get to that in just a second. Now let's talk about let's preview the MLB wild card. Let's start in the AL. You got game one. These games are starting tomorrow and on Wednesday. You got Texas and Tampa. What do you think? I mean, I know they didn't play a lot the regular season, but I'm wondering, like, this could be a really good matchup between two teams. I think Tampa might have the edge because they got more experience. I mean, Texas, it is their first trip in a few years. But I know Tyler Glass now will pitch game one for the Rays. I know it hasn't been decided who's going to start for Texas in game one. But what do you think about this series?
I think even though remember all the teams that are playing at home, they'll have the home field advantage for two. Is the best 2 out of 3 series for this wild card. So the home team will get all 3 games.
Yep.
But for this series is concerned. Tampa Bay, as we talked about for many years on the show, they play good, fundamentally sound baseball. You give manager Kevin Cash credit for that. And also, too, they perform well down the stretch in terms of executing with the bunting and the defense. But you mentioned with the experience, Tampa has it, Texas doesn't. But this is where manager Bruce Bochy will earn his money because Texas has a better lineup up and down the roster than Tampa does. And don't forget, this will be Achilles' heel, no pun intended. Tampa starts starting pitching, which has been hampered by injuries all year long. This is the injury to Shane McClanahan. This is where it's going to come into play. I have Texas winning a close one, taking 2 out of 3 in this wild card series because I think even though they struggle too with their starting pitch, I know Max Scherzer, I don't think is going to pitch in this series, but I think Texas has enough offense to get this thing done. And the experienced manager Bruce Bochy on their side will show through. So I'm going with Texas beating Tampa Bay in this series. Remember, Tampa was in this position last year. They went on a run and lost to Cleveland.
2 out of 3, I think, but this will go 3, but I think Tampa's going to win it just because of the fact that they do have kind of the experience and such. I mean, I know Bochy's got it on the managerial side, but for a lot of these guys, it's going to be a new experience for them. So I think, I'm not going to say they're going to go far. I'm not going to say they're going to go to the ALCS. I'm talking about Tampa, but I think they'll do just enough to win the series. I think they got a little bit of the firepower to kind of compensate from the pitching. So we'll see what happens there. Now, another good series in the AL wild card. You got Toronto and Minnesota. I'm not going to let my hate of Minnesota kind of vote, but I feel like Toronto, they could be like the Phillies and they kind of stuck in the playoffs a little late. They did what they needed to do. They're going to need they're definitely going to need contributions from both their pitching, their pitching especially, but also their hitting as well. Of course, Vlad, Jr., Kevin Biggio, Bo Bichette. I mean, all those guys, need to kind of step it up a little bit. And I think that'll be enough to beat Minnesota. And I think they may end up stealing 2 games. They may end up stealing the first 2 at Minnesota. So we'll see.
Yeah, I expect Toronto to win this series because not just because of my hatred for Minnesota too, but but Toronto has better starting pitching than they did a year ago when they lost to Seattle in the wild card series. Even though Toronto had their home field advantage last year, but Toronto has the better starting pitching this year. Their offense is still the same. It's actually a little bit better than it was a year ago. On the flip side for Minnesota, okay, Sonny Gray's had a nice year. Okay, Carlos Correa has been struggling. Of course, I forgot the one, Joey Gallo, who they picked up in the offseason. Okay, he's had a nice year, but I just don't trust them in this situation. It's been 20 years since they won the last playoff series. Looking, I think you had to go back to 2002.
Yep.
The playoffs when they lost to Oakland in the ALCS. Not Oakland, but they beat Oakland, but lost to the eventual. They lost to the eventual World Series champion Anaheim Angels at the time, 21 years ago. So that's the last time they won a playoff series. But Minnesota, they're going to get tested, obviously, against the best of the AL. And I think they're going to come up short again. They may still win game, but that's about it. I expect Toronto to – I'm going to predict a 2-0 sweep. But Toronto should win this series.
Yeah, they should. I think they're the better team, so we'll see what happens there. Now going to the NL, this will be these games will be at 6:00 on ESPN2. Well, this first one you got Arizona and Milwaukee. It'll be Brandon Plott versus Corbin Burns for Milwaukee. I know I'm gonna hate myself, but I think Milwaukee, they got a little bit more veterans. Arizona has a lot of young guys, so I'm thinking that maybe that could probably help the Brewers, I guess. I know it's the first time for them back in this position a couple of years. I think Milwaukee should win this, 2-0, but they're getting Arizona that surprises us again, so we'll see.
Yeah, I'm with you, Lakina. Milwaukee should win this series, but I think it's going to go the 3-game distance. Remember this name, folks, for Arizona. Corbin Carroll. Corbin Carroll, he's your runaway winner for National League Rookie of the Year. I know they have Zach Gallen. I don't know if he's going to pitch on Wednesday or not, but he's one of those young starting pitchers on the rise for the Arizona Diamondbacks. But like you said, Milwaukee, I call them the poor man's version of the White Sox. They don't have the big names on offense, but they'll have enough to get it done. They're really built on starting pitching, and they have a great bullpen as well. So I think those two factors will come into play. Of course, Christian Yelich is having a fantastic renaissance year, wherever you call that, for Milwaukee. But Milwaukee's bullpen especially will come through in this series. So I'm going with Milwaukee. They're going the distance, 2-1.
Should be interesting series there and here as well. Miami and Philadelphia. Miami kind of clawed their way in the last couple of days to get into the wild card here. But I think Philadelphia, no one's really talking about them very much. I mean, I kind of feel like they were in the World Series last year. I don't think anybody, no one's really noticing them, but I think they probably prefer it that way. So I think they should have no trouble in Miami. They should be able to win this 2-0 easily, but then again, you never know.
Yeah, I think that the injury to Sandy Alcantara for the Miami Marlins will come back to bite them. He's not going to pitch in this series. I know Jake Berger is the former White Sox player. Yeah. He's injured too. I don't know if he's going to be available for the playoffs, but Philadelphia has the experience that you mentioned. They lost to the Houston Astros in the World Series last year. Of course, Bryce Harper and Kyle Schwarber got hot. I know they had Trey Turner there now, and they have, of course, Michael Lorenzen, their pitcher. They picked up via the trade deadline, and he threw a no-hitter. Of course, he's one of the stable guys in the rotation. Don't forget about Zach Wheeler as well.
Yep.
So I think Philadelphia has an overall better team. I know Miami is tough. They're going to be a tough out, but Philadelphia should be able to handle this. I'm going with Philly in this one.
All right, Texas and Tampa. Those games will be at 2:00 on ABC, both Tuesday and Wednesday, and Thursday if necessary. Same thing with Toronto. That'll be at 3:30 on ESPN. 6:00 for Arizona and Milwaukee on ESPN2. And Miami and Philadelphia on ESPN. Remember, those games are going to be Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday. I'm sure it's going to be, in case, these, a couple only, I'm sure the schedule will change if, some games go to Thursday and some games don't. But, that is your schedule for MLB playoffs. For the wild card round, you listen to Second City Sports on Sports Social Chicago. Keena McGee sitting around with you. Tim Wakefield, who's one of the best knuckleball pitchers out there, sadly passed away on yesterday. There was some stuff that came out on Friday. I guess no one knew how bad it was because he and his wife, who she's also having some medical issues herself, kept it very close to the vest. And it was tough because, Tim Wakefield was one of my favorite pitchers growing up. That knuckleball had one of the best knuckleballers out there, won 2 World Series with Boston. And you saw, if you saw Chris Shilley's, not Chris Shilley, oh, good Lord. Roger Clemens' Twitter post, you saw some of the other various, I know Manny Ramirez shared some stuff as well on his social media, former Red Sox teammates. So, you have any thoughts on Tim Wakefield?
Yeah, I remember him as a young stud with the Pittsburgh Pirates back in the early 90s. They were playing against the Braves in the National League Championship Series. And of course, he made his mark there on the big stage in the playoffs. Of course, you mentioned his career with the Boston Red Sox. And remember, he was the pitcher that gave up their home run to Aaron Boone in Game 7 back in 2003, but stayed with the team in 2004, of course, for the rest of his career. And he got his just due with that World Series title in 2004. And of course, he grabbed another one in 2007. But he was one of the last of the knuckleballers. He was very effective, and he kept hitters off balance. And he was part of that big comeback in that 2004 season when they trailed 3-0 to the New York Yankees. And he was a big part of that as well, coming out of the bullpen. So he's one of those guys that he was a pillar in the Boston Red Sox organization in the community, and he was starting to broadcast a few of their games the last couple of years. I just saw him not too long ago, earlier this season, and of course, hearing about his health situation for the last couple of weeks, it was very heartbreaking. But he will definitely be missed, and his legacy will.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw JB Erdahl, of course, does Good Morning Football. Well, actually did cover some stuff for the Boston Red Sox over on Nest. I know there's somebody when he first started doing TV work. So really just sad news there. We keep his family and the rest of Boston Red Sox organization in our prayers. From here on.
Hopefully Pittsburgh would do something for him too.
Yeah, Pittsburgh Pirates as well. Of course, I think he spent like 4 or 5 years there at Pittsburgh before he went to Boston. So it's just a sad all around, just an overall good guy too, from what we've heard about him. So rest in peace to him as well. This is XC Sports on Sports on Chicago. Lakina McGee, Cindy Brown with you. Let's line it up here, Sid. We're getting depressed here. Let's talk about Tim Wakefield and his untimely death. But the NBA Media Day is going on right now. I think it just concluded. Of course, the Bulls, of course. If you saw, go to CHGO Bulls while you're listening to us, obviously. You saw DeMar DeRozan crashing our guys, Big Dave Watson and Matt Peck. We'll get those guys on within the next few weeks. Of course, Will Gottlieb as well. I know Will Purdue did some photo bombing as well. That was actually pretty funny. Of course, everyone's taking pictures and stuff and in uniform and whatnot. If you saw on the Miami Heat, if you saw Jimmy Butler, the hair, Andre.
He reminds me. Remember, he passed away in the 90s. He's actually from Chicago, and he was one of the background dancers for Shalimar. He actually went solo. You know who I'm talking about? Jermaine Stewart. Yep, he had that Jermaine Stewart 1980s hair look.
Herb Lawrence actually said, cherry wine,
Yes.
Look, I told him, and he agreed. Most people under 35 will not get that reference. So for those
exactly
a one-hit wonder, that was a one-hit wonder for Mr. Stewart. Of course,
that's what it was really about, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. Of course. For you folks out there, do your own research. We'll leave it at that.
We'll leave it there. But going back to these Media Day, I saw Denver's Media Day. Of course. Nikola Jokic, of course, gonna be a nonchalant as usual. But look, I think a big trade actually came down right before that. Jrue Holiday is on his way to Boston, from Portland. So, look, remember what I said. Look, Boston needs something to do something. I think they just said. I think bringing him on. I think he's definitely going to be a good replacement for Marcus Smart.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I had that same thought too over the weekend. Marcus Smart brings that extra toughness that you needed for Boston. I know they had to give him up to get something better, but Jrue Holiday is going to be a very good replacement. Plus, he's a very serviceable point guard, and you don't have to have Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum bring up the ball all the time. You're going to have a solid point guard in Jrue Holiday. He's going to know his role within the offense. He could be that third and fourth guy to give you some scoring, but you don't need him to score 20 or 30 points again. You got Tatum and Jaylen Brown to take care of that. You need Jrue Holiday for defense. He's going to anchor that group on the other end of the floor. So Boston definitely got better with that acquisition. So it's definitely going to be between them and Milwaukee at the top of the Eastern Conference. Everybody else can go and play.
Well, yeah, I can't wait for NBA, and I can't wait to get our buddies, back to our NBA preview.
It's definitely going to be one to remember.
It's gonna be it's gonna be lit, as the younger folks would say. As listen to Second City Sports on Sports Social Chicago. Lakina McGee, Sydney Brown with you. A really quick shout out to the European Ryder Cup team. They get the cup back, beating the U.S. 16.5 to 11.5. It really was. I know we were talking before we came on. Said I know you watched a little bit on Saturday, and by the time by the time all the NFL pregame show started, the day was already over with. Tommy Fleetwood had already gotten the half a point that Europe needed to to clinch the cup again. I remember a couple years ago at Whistling Straits when Rory McIlroy, he was in tears. It was just a reverse too, so it was actually pretty cool seeing that. Luke Donald, of course, former Northwestern guy, was a vice captain for years, got his chance to be captain. They wanted to be captain again because he was the one that kind of changed the trajectory of how the European team was selected. Robert McIntyre, who, if you guys don't know his name, he plays on the World Dunlap Tour, which is sort of like the junior version of the European Tour.
Yeah.
He was 4-0-1. Big, he wanted to be in the Ryder Cup. He got in and paid great dividends. John Rahm, Rory, and Victor Hovland, our girl Christine's guy, they were 9-2-3 in their that's group match, that group play, and also match play in their singles. So a really good showing over Europe in a dominating fashion.
Yeah, as we talked about before we went on live, that I did check out a little bit of it on Saturday before the Colorado USC football game. Of course, whether it's usually around this time of year, we talk about with the other tournaments that go on overseas, Lakina, that weather is usually a factor. It wasn't a factor this year. I know this tournament was in Italy, but weather wasn't a factor. It was a huge crowd. And I think I asked you this question on Friday, and I'll ask it again. You said we did have, in terms of the U.S., we did have some of our best golfers over there, but can we get even more experienced golfers over there and on our team going forward, and can we get some of the younger up and comers up there to mix in on the team as well?
Yeah, there were some people that felt that maybe Lucas Glover and Keegan Bradley, who are both major winners, should have been there. And I guess Zach Johnson picked guys like Justin Thomas actually did pretty well. He was one of his picks. Some people thought that maybe he should not have been there. I don't know if Glover and Bradley could have made a difference. I mean, they could have made it a little bit closer or made it a little more interesting, but I think Europe to top to bottom, I think they just outclassed and outplayed the U.S., and they wanted that cup back. So they were determined to win it. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know Zach Johnson. I don't know if he'll be back. I know Luke Donald will probably be back, as captain for the Europe, but he's not probably. Zach Johnson probably will be back for the U.S. 2 years from now, the Ryder Cup, I should say, will be in Bethpage, Black and Log Island. So that should be interesting. And also, I mean, but the U.S., I mean, I think they got a lot of soul searching to do. I kind of feel like they could have done a little bit better. But like I said, you're facing a European team that was very determined. So I don't know if changing some of the combination of guys, picking a couple of other guys, I don't know if it would have made a difference.
Yeah, but like I said, if you're the United States, you need to bring the best of the best. Who wants to play, and the ones that you need on the team, you got to convince them that this is just not just for their personal brand, but it's for the U.S. golf brand. And you had to do some soul searching, like you mentioned. You had to do some convincing, and you just had to have that goal in mind. Like, this is not just about you, but this is about the U.S. golf brand. This is a team thing, and we want our best against their best, and we see what happens.
Yeah, some people were saying that maybe Brooks Koepka shouldn't have been there because of the live golf, but he has a major this year too. People forget, so it was pretty, but actually on the funny side, it was pretty funny. Victor Hovland, of course, there was a picture of him with all the European wives and girlfriends. Of course, he's the only one who's single, so I don't think Victor will have any trouble finding the lady after this. I just don't think that's going to happen. But he was definitely the man of the hour there yesterday, so it's actually pretty funny. But of course, anything else said before we go to Old School TV Monday?
I did my shout outs, and of course with Bulls Media Day, all the people said all the right things. Go check them out, as Lakina said, on CHGO Bulls on YouTube, and our guys at NBC Sports Chicago as well. They did a great job earlier today. I think the Bulls, as we said, we'll dive more deeper into the Bulls coverage as the preseason for them starts this upcoming weekend, and we'll do a deeper dive in the next couple weeks before the season starts. But I want to see how this team forms, because this is last year the core, as Nikola Vucevic said. But they got some work to do, and they got to figure out who's going to be their starting point guard, as we talked about last week.
Definitely. So a lot to do still, of course, with the Bulls, but we'll see what happens there. Because we'll get deeper into it as we get closer and closer to the start of the season. So the Second City Sports on Sports of Chicago. Once again, Lakeena McGee, Cindy Brown with you as we wrap things up here. Sid, Old School TV Monday. Let's go.
Yeah, let's salute the old ABC 70s TV sitcom, The Odd Couple. That's right. Yeah, Neil Simon's The Odd Couple was an American sitcom television series that debuted on ABC on September 24th, 1970 through March 7th, 1975. The show starred Tony Randall as Felix Unger and Jack Klugman as Oscar Madison. Was the first of several sitcoms developed by Gary Marshall for Paramount Television. The series was based on the 1965 play The Odd Couple, written by Neil Simon, which was also adapted into the 1968 film The Odd Couple. The story examines two divorced men, Oscar and Felix, who shared a Manhattan apartment and whose opposite personalities inevitably led to conflict and laughter. In 1997, the episodes Password and The Fat Farm were ranked number 5 and number 58, respectively, on TV Guide's 100 Greatest Episodes of All Time. The show received 3 nominations for the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Comedy Series.
Yeah, it was definitely one of those underrated sitcoms. I kind of feel like,
Yeah.
Of course, the movie, of course, starred Art Carney and Walter Matthau. The activity, if you looked at the film, it was very similar to the series. Oscar was kind of like the slob, and garbage and stuff all over the place. Felix was just the opposite. Very demure, very clean cut. You probably say it was a little bit of a stiff, but it's kind of was part of his personality. Jack Klugman and Tony Randall, God rest their souls. I mean, they did a great job, with those roles. And I kind of feel like that Password episode is probably one of the best ever on television, not just in the series, but on television history. Check it out on YouTube. I don't know. I think it's on Pluto TV. I think they're streaming it, but also it's on YouTube too. So if you guys would ever want to check that out. But yeah, I really love the series. And look, they've had other adaptations. I know they did a black version of The Odd Couple. They tried to do that. Didn't really work. But yeah, I think the television show was really solid. I mean, you had people like Penny Marshall made one of her first TV appearances on that show. Al Melanero, same thing. He, of course, Al on Happy Days. He made a couple appearances on that show as well. He had a really current appearance on that show too. Probably should have lasted longer than only 5 years. People forget that she only lasted 5 years, but
I thought it lasted longer too. I'm like,
I know, yeah, right. I mean, when I first saw the first run, I saw it, of course, the repeats. But I'm like, really? It only lasted 5 years. But yeah, it was just a really solid series. I mean, it kind of delved into divorced men, which that was. No one was really doing that back then, so
right. It was kind of a taboo subject, yeah.
Yeah, it really was. I know people forget that. It was very taboo back then because divorce was, oh my God. I mean, look, standard practices, of course, but yeah, I mean, this was just a really classic series. And I feel like I'm glad we're getting it too, because I feel like it doesn't get its due.
Yeah, and a couple other notes to pass along. Celebrity guest stars that appeared on the show: Howard Cosell, J.P. Morgan played herself as one of Oscar's many girlfriends. Of course, Monty Hall, Wolfman Jack, David Steinberg, Hugh Hefner, Rodney Allen Rippey. For those of you our age, old to know what that name represents. John Simon, Bubba Smith, Deacon Jones, John Barber, and the late Barry White. Sorry, not Barry White. Ooh, Jesus Christ. Betty White.
Betty White. Betty White. Yeah, she was on a.
Not Barry White. Excuse me.
Yeah, we'll say. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, look, there's some really classic, episodes. Like you said, we talked about the Howard Cosell one, and also too, Let's Make It, they were on Let's Make a Deal. I think, that was a Monty Hall episode. Of course, we talked about the Password episode, the very famous episode, probably the more famous ones. But yeah, I mean, look, it was good, clean, fun, and it was a little bit dramatic because they didn't have the laugh track in the first couple of seasons.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, so it was kind of like, some people thought it was sort of like a dramedy, I guess, sort of. Not really a sitcom because it dealt with divorce, which is actually the first time that they'd done that. But it did became more and more of a sort of like a more of a sitcom style. Once they did add the laugh track in the later seasons. So
yeah, So, like I said, The Odd Couple was a great show. Like you said, there's been very different versions throughout the years, but it was nothing like the original one. It wasn't over the top. It was just simple and it was funny. It dealt with real life situations, but it was all about humor, and they dealt with it from that way. They didn't really quote unquote beat you over the head with it.
Which made it good, I think,
Exactly.
Which is good, because I know sitcoms have a very hard time trying, especially if they don't want to do like stuff like divorce and other things. I mean, it does get a little tough for them to make it kind of like in a funny way, but they just said, like you said, they didn't beat you over the head with it. They, kind of kept it light and kept it funny, but it kept it informative too, which I think, you appreciate that from a sitcom.
Yes. So for Old School TV Monday for this week, we salute the 70s ABC TV comedy series, The Odd Couple. Lakina, take us home.
Going old school. I like that. You kind of changed up a little bit there, City. You can follow me at Kingdom McGee on the Twitter, at X, at KSquareMcGee on the IG.
You can follow your Shirley Sydney Brown on the Twitter, X, and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80. That's SIDKID80. Make sure you download that Sports Zone Chicago app wherever you get your apps. Make sure you follow Sports Zone Chicago on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Please subscribe to our podcast at War Media Podcast. That's WARR Media, PODCASTS. We are on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. And make sure you subscribe to War Media on all social media platforms on Facebook, Twitter, X, Instagram, and YouTube at WARR Media.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends. And of course, you can catch Sports Zone Chicago anytime, anywhere on Roku TV.
Roku!
Yep, just go on your Roku app, wherever you got it, your app store, on your TV or whatever device you have. Type in type in Sports Zone Chicago. You can catch our show, Sean and Maya, the Smoke Fellas. I know what's up, cuz. I know Jason Palmer might not be in a very good mood tonight. So
you don't say, huh?
I know Burr's gonna give him a little get on him for that.
Yeah.
But you can catch our show anytime, anywhere, or any other shows anytime, anywhere. Excuse me.
Yes. So don't forget to catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Sports Zone Chicago. One more again, as the kids would say. Excuse me. Catch Second City Sports live in living color every Monday, every Friday from noon to 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, right here on Sports Zone Chicago.
And of course, shout out to the New York Liberty. The ABC got their dream matchup, the Vegas Aces versus New York Liberty for the WNBA championship best of 5 series start on Sunday. We might talk a little bit more about that, but I don't understand why they would have it in the middle of football. But I digress. But yeah, so if you want to check that out, we'll probably talk a little bit more on that on Friday. Of course, all the other great football matches coming up too. Also enjoy all the baseball playoffs. That should be a fun wild card series about the AL and the NL, and just enjoy all the sports that's coming up. For Sid, I'm Lakina. Enjoy the weather out there these last couple of days of summer. This has been Second City Sports on Sports Zone Chicago, and we'll see you Friday.
Go Bulls, holla!
Woo!